Long Beach? Welcome back to your home for everything local sports. It's JJ.
And Mike, and these preview videos are brought to you by Naples Rib Company, the perfect place to cater your team's next event.
A trip to the ship is on the line Friday night. CIF Southern Section Football Semifinals. We have 4 local teams playing for a chance to play for it all next weekend.
I mean, I don't know what else you'd want besides Bosco and Corona Centennial, 2 of the top 5 teams in the country, going head-to-head. This, to me, has been the best. I don't know if you'd call it a rivalry because there's not that sort of emotional dislike of each other necessarily, but it's the best playoff series we've had in Southern California since modern-day Poly back in the late 90s. These two teams, over the last 4 years, this will be the 5th straight year they're playing each other in at least the CIF semifinals. They played twice in the semifinals, twice in the CIF championship, and once in the state semifinal. Those 4 games so far are 2-2. Bosco scored 210 points, Corona Centennial scored 206. You cannot ask for anything better than that.
They play a couple more of these important playoff games against each other, that rivalry is going to get real intense real fast.
Well, especially one thing that's interesting to note, you know, a lot of these Bosco kids come from the Inland Empire, and when you look at dudes like DJ and Nguilele, the quarterback, Raul Mitchell, the quarterback last year for the team, these guys kind of grew up with some of these Corona Centennial guys, so there is a little bit of the back and forth chippiness between them. It's just not that like program to program, oh, we hate Corona Centennial, we hate Bosco kind of a thing yet.
We've told you all about Bosco all year long. Corona Centennial Huskies, the same beast that's been balling in the IE for the last few years under Matt Logan. They've scored 643 points this season.
Is that all?
643, y'all. They've won 9 straight games. They're averaging, I mean, ridiculous numbers. They're averaging 296 yards rushing per game, 236 yards passing per game. The big question is going to be whether Tanner McKee is dressed or not.
Yes, McKee has 184 of their 250 passing attempts this year. They have had 6 guys throw a football, but obviously McKee is the dude, quarterback who can go to. He's got his pick of choices. I think right now maybe leaning towards UW. He just went on a UW visit. McKee had what appeared to the naked eye to have been a concussive type of an event or injury in their quarterfinal win last week. Obviously all that information is private and you're just guessing looking at it, right? But a lot of reporters who were there obviously looked to them like it was a hard hit to the head. So the question is, if he's diagnosed with a concussion, that's a 2-week protocol that he's got to be back in. The family and the coaches all been mum about whether or not he's been diagnosed with a concussion. He did, the day after the game, fly to Washington to go on his recruiting visit, and on Monday he was back in a helmet throwing the ball as though it were a regular practice on Monday. So the question remains, is he going to be available? Matt Logan, Corona Centennial obviously playing their cards close to the vest, as they should on that one. Whether or not you see number 12 run out there to start that game is the first big storyline that'll really take place before the game even gets going.
Whether it's McKee or anyone else, the Huskies want to run the ball. McKee himself has 11 rushing touchdowns this year, so the dual threat at the quarterback position, those RPO run-pass options are going to be important, to the point at which the linebacking core at St. John Bosco may win or lose this game for the Braves. Last year, it was Travis Tuatasi and Cross Poyer. Those 2 linebackers got sideline to sideline, they made the right reads, they played a smart game, and they made the game-winning play on 4th down near midfield in the 4th quarter. This year, Goforth, Gilbert, those linebackers for Bosco have got to make the right reads, play smart, get sideline to sideline, because if they don't, that's when Corona Centennial goes crazy. If Corona Centennial can win the battle between the quarterback and the linebackers, Corona Centennial has you right where they want you. Make sure you check out that feature on Goforth and Gilbert at PressTelegram.com.
I think my feature may be on the other most important player in the game, the sophomore quarterback DJ Nguilele. I mean, I don't know what else you could expect from a kid who's come in as a 10th grader, been a starter for the second half of this season, and his numbers have just been absolutely nuts as well. What I've been most impressed on with DJ is that he's not turning the ball over. You would expect a dude who's a 5-star quarterback, top sophomore in the sophomore class, to throw it around, have the high completion percentage and big totals that he did, but I would have expected, to be honest with you, more turnovers, and he hasn't done that. He's come in and been a polished senior type kid as a 10th grader.
The second interception that he threw against Rancho Cucamonga in the quarterfinals was a just throw it up, see what happens end of the half interception too. So he's only got those 2 picks. He's completing 73% of his passes in 2 playoff starts for 683 yards and 7 touchdowns.
The kid is
if you need him.
really good, and we're excited to have another 2 years of covering him.
Over/under points in this game, Mike. I mean, 100?
And then I'd take the over, absolutely. if you look, well, look, I said, right, they've met 4 times, and it's 210 to 206, so they're averaging over 100 points a game. I mean, it's been it's been 416 points in the first 4 times they've played.
We're going to bring in our guy Julian Lopez to talk about the other 3 teams playing CIF Southern Section semifinals on Friday night. Downey taking the longest road trip of the week for our local teams. They are at Capistrano Valley, a very good Capo Valley team. But boy, does this Downey offense know how to put up some points.
Yeah, Jay, pleasure to be here. They've scored over 47 points in their last 6 games. Speaking of good quarterback, Kijan Foots, 309 passing yards, 5 TDs, 102 rushing yards in their 49-42 victory over Corona Del Mar last week, and he hasn't thrown an interception in his last 120 passing attempts.
Wow, yeah, I told you those Cougars were good, so the Vikings are going to have their hands full against a team that is 12-0. They won their first 2 playoff games by a total of 69 to 13. So just like we said with that Corona Centennial Bosco game, I think we could be in store for a high-scoring affair here.
Love it. I love high-scoring games.
Capistrano Valley Junior quarterback Nathan Manning, 2,800 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, and a passing touchdown in every game but one that week 2 against La Mirada.
A battle of 2 great quarterbacks, and my prediction, whoever has the ball last is going to win.
We move down to Division 5, where the SGVL brother of Downey, Paramount, the champions of the SGVL this year, are in their first semifinal since 1994. They're going to be at home taking on Moorpark.
That's a great year, the year I was born in. If you love defenses, this is the matchup for you. Paramount has given up 168 points this year. Moorpark, they've given up 170.
The Musketeers from Moorpark beat Lawndale in the quarterfinals 22-20, kind of saving Paramount from having to play the top-seeded Lawndale team.
Moorpark held Jordan Wilmore to under 20 rushing yards, and this was a running back that came into the game with over 2,000 rushing yards and 29 touchdowns. So this Musketeers defense is really good. And speaking of really good defenses, the Pirates, they have 4 guys with at least 10 tackles for a loss, and as a team, they have 105. They're averaging 8.75 tackles per loss per game.
So with 2 good defenses, you've got to give the edge to the better rushing attack. Senior running back Pierre Robinson from Paramount, on 9 carries last week, had 189 yards and 2 touchdowns against the mighty Pumas of Chaparral in that 34-21 Paramount win. Paramount looking good, not making huge mistakes, which has been something that has happened to them in these big games. They can kind of stay out of their own way and ride that home momentum. They could be in for a historic win over Moorpark.
Finally, in Division 9, Mayfair at home against Burroughs. Burroughs beat St. Anthony last week 32-7. They've won their first 2 playoff games by a total of 75-7. Monsoons, they've allowed 7 points or less in their last 5 games. They beat Woodbridge 42-7 in the quarterfinals.
Oh, we were so close to the semifinal double dip, Julian. We could have had St. Anthony and Mayfair, but Mayfair going to be at Ron Yari yet again in those 2 playoff games for Mayfair. Our guy, Chris Adamora, the dude, 8 catches, 268 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Adamora getting looks from Pac-12 teams because of his defensive prowess, but now in the playoffs, Mayfair understands that he's probably one of the best athletes in this division, and they're going to find every way possible to get Fiver the ball.
And don't forget his teammate Trey Anderson, 26 carries, 242 yards, 7 touchdowns. So in the playoffs, you need your big guys to step up, and that's what the Monsoons have been doing.
You know, I just wanted to jump in and add here, we're obviously supposed to remain objective, but I am flat out 100% rooting for these Mayfair Monsoons after reading JJ's very emotional feature on Kai Emsley and the passing of his father before the season started. That young man, to have gone through what he's gone through and then do what he's done on the field this year, and then clearly to be the leader that he is, that's almost unspeakable to me. I lost my father our senior year of college, and I was not in that place. So for him to be a high school senior, my brother was a senior in high school when our dad passed, and you know, those are really tough roads, and you might read about other kids going through stuff like that and start to get used to features like that, but man, to see him say the things he said about his dad, you know, I wish nothing but the best for them, and I hope that he's able to go and win that one for his pops.
It's a family over there, Uncommon at Mayfair. Derek Vidella, head coach, has turned that thing around. They had success. I mean, this is their first semifinal since 2010, so they've had recent success, but it just feels different over there, and really the sky is the limit for a very talent-rich area.
The Kai Emsley feature is just one of many features we have written on some great athletes. If you go to thepresstelegram.com and you look at the previews this week, if you click on some of the players' names, it'll have their features right there just for you.
You can't be everywhere, but we will be on Friday night. If you're at one of these games and you're trying to check in the score on another game, you got to follow us on Twitter at PT Gazette Sports.
Thanks as always to all of our sponsors, including Papalucci's, a great place to eat down on 2nd Street. Hey, you got family back in town for Thanksgiving, you know you want that non-turkey dinner on Wednesday or Friday, go hit up Papalucci's, tell them we sent you.
High school football playoffs, it does not get any better than this. We are thrilled to be covering Thanksgiving practices, and even more thrilled to be covering high school football on Friday night. We'll see you in the stands.